Hello, I'm Donald Leggett and welcome to Share Views, brought to you by London South East. Our guest today is Colin Hutchinson, Chief Executive of ASCENT Resources, who have just announced the start of gas production in Slovenia. Finally it's happened, and now they're actually selling gas to a client in Croatia. Welcome, Colin.
Thank you, Donald. Great to be here.
It's good to see you again.
Yeah, it's good to be here.
Okay, and the big question, you're finally producing gas in Slovenia and selling it to INA in Croatia. What made that harder than it looked?
Well, it took us a bit longer to get there than we'd hoped, certainly. It was a nervous few moments on Wednesday night, Thursday morning, where we got the taps turned on and got everything flowing through, but it ran. The last hurdle was remarkably smooth and we got everything turned on properly, and both wells are flowing now across to the Croatians. I mean, what we've accomplished over the last 18 months is quite complicated, and there is good reason why it took a long time and took a bit of money to do. We've recompleted two sort of high pressure, high temperature gas wells, which wasn't easy, and we got those done. We've refurbished existing infrastructure. So the existing CPP has been around for a long time. We had to refurbish that and stick within the regulatory guidelines that we have for that plant. The
Would it be
permitting
easier to actually start from new?
Much easier if we'd been able to build our new one, and we obviously were applying for the permit to do that, but we had to stick within the framework of the existing one, which provided its own challenges. And lastly, we recertified and rehabilitated a pipeline that hasn't sent gas for about 20 years. Used to send gas the opposite direction from Croatia up to Slovenia to the methanol plant. We've got the paperwork processed on both sides of the border, which is no mean feat given local bureaucracy. So we have accomplished an awful lot. It sounded a lot simpler a year ago when we were planning all this. We came across...
You had a change of government in Croatia, of course.
Change of government in Croatia. There's been a lot of disruption within the Croatian bureaucratic system. The energy department moved around and personnel have moved around. There's been changes within INA. We've had a lot of things come up against us bureaucratically, and also subsurface. Neither 10 or 11 ran completely smoothly. We had things we had to fix on both of those wells, and we've overcome a lot of sort of technical, operational and legal hurdles to get to where we are today. So it was immensely satisfying on Thursday morning to be told that we had gas flowing across the border and that it was being received on the Croatian side.
Well, congratulations. It really is a game-changing moment for ASCENT.
Yeah, I mean, it is. It's what we've been working for. This gas flow now makes the company profitable and generates some cash flow. And then we can build up our cash resources and use that to develop the project, because these first two wells are just this first step down the road to the full field development here. Our ultimate plan is to have maybe up to 15 wells producing, a mixture of old rehabilitated wells and new drills, sending gas into the Slovenian grid with our own processing plant, and sort of increasing production maybe tenfold, maybe more from where we are today. So this is really just the first step to developing this field.
Will you need to raise new funds to be able to do that, or is it from existing revenues?
Well, the way that the field development plan is set up, we get producing from the first two wells. After maybe 12 months or so, we'd seek to re-enter some of the old wells, and certainly the first well re-entry, maybe the second one, could be done from existing cash flow. When we come to redevelop, to install our new processing plant, that's a more major piece of CapEx, and that will likely need new funds. Now, I'm hopeful that those new funds could come from sort of project finance arrangement or a debt arrangement, because we have in the past been successful in getting project finance for that stage of the development. We actually had a loan from BNP Paribas in 2012, 2013, which was intended to develop the process, or to install the processing plant and drill 2 new wells. So it's possible to get bank debt for that. So I'm hopeful that the next big chunk of CapEx in Slovenia, which is the new plant, should be from debt rather than equity.
And what about getting permissions? The IPPR permit.
Yeah.
Where are you with the IPPR permit for your own processing plant?
So that permit, the IPPC permit, is required to install this gas treatment facility so we can put the gas into the grid. We've been, I think the appeal was submitted in May, and based on previous timelines, I thought sort of 5 or 6 months, we should have had an opinion from the court by now. So I'm hopeful that that comes through any day now. Well, it could come through any day. Certainly by the end of the year, we'd hope to have that in place. And once that's in place, then we can start to plan to build out the processing plant. But it's no longer the binary sort of success fail that it maybe once was. And certainly when we got knocked back on the permit in May 2015, it was or 2016, sorry, was a major sort of setback, because at the time we hadn't signed up the ENA contract. But now we have the contract to ENA, which is a 12-month contract, but we can renew that. I think both parties will be keen to do that. And we've set up the infrastructure in such a way that we could increase gas production by a multiple from where we are now and still put it through the current infrastructure to ENA. So the IPPC permit is nice for the long term, so we can start to get gas into the grid, which gets us a better margin and means we can really increase volumes really significantly. But the infrastructure to ENA, we have room to grow within that anyway. So hopefully the IPPC comes through, but I'm not sweating on it as much. It's a terrible
question to ask you, but what if you never got that IPPC permit?
Well, I mean, now if it never came through, which I think is very unlikely, because every time it's been in front of the government 4 times, and it's been passed every time. It got knocked back by the court in May 2016 on a pure technicality, a European law sort of inconsistency. So we've addressed all those issues, so I'm hopeful that it does come through without any issue before the end of the year. If it didn't, we just continue to send gas over to Croatia. They're quite happy to take it. They make good money on it. They've got processing facilities there. So I think everyone's happy with that arrangement, but we'd like for the long term and for the benefit of Slovenia as well to put Slovenian gas into the grid.
And in terms of that 12-month contract, you've got a minimum delivery, maximum delivery, sort of cap and collar type arrangement.
Yeah.
And when will you actually be able to confirm the predicted revenues?
Well, I've put some numbers in our interim accounts to say that based on sort of the upper and lower limits, we'd expect to have revenues of around €300,000 a month going forward for the next 12 months. We'll started producing obviously beginning of November now, so end of November we'll raise the first invoice and we'll have the first cash coming in, and then end of December, beginning of January. So be a happy new year.
The chat boards are full of this. When did you get your first money in? When's your first invoice? When did you get your first money in?
Well, I mean, it's a fairly standard sort of 30-day invoice period. So at the end of November we'll invoice for what's been shipped in November. 30 days after we raise the invoice, we'd expect to have the cash coming through. It's a normal commercial arrangement. There's bank guarantees on both sides. Yeah, we've had some questions through, people asking us, what if you don't get paid? I really don't think that's an issue.
And are you actually delivering at full capacity at the moment, or is it a build-up to full capacity?
Well, we built it up on sort of over the course of Thursday from low pressure. So by the end of Thursday, we were running at where we wanted to be running at. And we've been doing that over the weekend, and we'll continue to do that. Once we get an idea of how the reservoirs are behaving, we might take the decision to increase it slightly, or we'll see how that goes. But certainly for the first few weeks, we'll run it close to the minimum, just to make sure we understand what's happening. We'll vary that between the 2 wells as well, so we can get some data about how the pressures are responding, and then we'll set some projections then for the rest, or we'll set the targets, how we hope to produce for the rest of the months.
And final question, what's the likely time frame for actually getting that licence and for the build? So
getting the IPPC permit, hopefully before the end of this year. The court have come back and made their decision. We don't have a clear date, but based on previous timelines, I'd expect it to be through by then. And then it takes around 12 months to build out the plant if you were to run full tilt. And as I said, we already have ENA set up. We've got room to grow within the ENA contract, and that generates nice cash flow. So we're no longer sort of a hostage to the IPPC permit. We continue to make good money selling gas through to ENA. When the IPPC comes through and when everything else makes sense, then we'll build out that plant and we'll kick on the project from there.
Colin Hutchinson, CEO of ASCENT Resources, thank you for joining us today.
Thanks, Donald.
And thank you to you as ever for watching.